I can whistle really good.
Can you?
No. I was attempting to do like that French horn, like the do 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 do.
Nah, don't bother.
It's good.
Don't bother, otherwise we'll get copyright striked like the last episode, so just do the guitar.
I may not always love you, as long as there are stars above you. You never need to doubt it. I make you so sure about it. God only knows what I'd be without you.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Temporary Uncles podcast with special guest Louis Armstrong.
Fat Albert.
Hey.
Don't you love God Only Knows by the Beach Boys feat Fat Albert?
No, featuring Louis Armstrong.
Yeah, I'm sure that's who that is.
The Beyond Rose. Hey.
That's the worst mishmash of 20th century pop culture nonsense that you could have come up with.
Yeah.
You never cease to remind me how much of a cool, hip cat you are.
Oh yeah, well I do have cool sunglasses right now.
Yeah, there's some black aviators that convey your status to me.
Yeah.
You're my better. You're my dom.
I'm taller.
Tell me what
Which
to do.
is the only
Daddy.
reason that makes me better than you. Yeah. So yeah, welcome to the Temporary Uncles podcast. I am Uncle 1.
And I'm Uncle
2.
Fun.
Got him.
That's what
How's
people
it?
call me, Uncle Fun.
How's it hanging, my broski? My
Shriveled slightly to the left.
My brotato. My Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, Jesus Christ. My Aaron Brokovich.
My Broge Washington.
Wow. My Bro J Simpson.
My Adrian Brody. At this point, I just have to do like some stupid laugh, and you start laughing.
Just because it's funny. I remember thinking when I was in like year 6.
You remember thinking?
Yeah, I know. I'd be.
What's that like? I haven't had a thought in.
I remember thinking when I was about 10, I was in year 6, being like, yeah, I'm into clever comedy, like Monty Python, it's satirical. Yeah.
And then you go back and watch
Postmodern.
Monty Python, you're like, this is fucking stupid.
I mean,
and
like,
it's great.
Well, Life of Brian is like a general comment on autonomy and organized religion, but then I've got you who that just goes like, oh, and that does it for me.
Just a tingle, penis, and you start laughing.
It's just I've accepted ultimate stupidity.
But the thing is, because Monty Python's actually been on like TV, so I've been watching like full episodes because I hadn't in a while. As a kid we had like Monty Python's Personal Best, which was my exposure to the sketches and stuff outside of the movies.
Yeah,
because I'd seen all the movies as a kid.
Yeah.
Pardon moi. But I'd never really watched full episodes until it started showing on TV, and it is really. It's such a stupid show.
Yeah.
It's really silly. And I love it because of how silly it is. And they know how silly it is. It's not trying to be some, like, satirical comment on anti-comedy or be some postmodern thing. They're just being stupid. And it's hilarious because it's really well done.
Yeah, it's just like the writing process is 6 grown men just trying to amuse
themselves.
Yeah,
really.
amuse each other by doing the most off-the-wall stuff they can think
like
of.
one could make the argument that it's surrealism, but surrealism is one of those things where you don't actively go out to make it surreal. You just make it whatever it is, and it ends up being surreal.
Yeah,
you
as
know?
opposed to going, okay, I want to make something that is
Weird,
really odd.
You know.
But like
Well, unless your goal is I want to make the audience like
Confused.
then there's your like reason for making it weird, you know.
What seems to strike me, and there's a particular example that I want to go over, is just I think about some of the things that they do, particularly as far as the non sequiturs that they just put in, and it surprises me how anyone could have thought about the things that they did and make the decision to include them. So there is some sketch where it's like a pantomime thing where they're dressed up as like 7-foot tall characters running through the forest. It was like a crime thing, and they've just got this chase.
The pantomime horse.
Yeah, and it's the pantomime horse being chased by the pantomime Princess Margaret.
Yeah.
And there is this bit that they cut to. So they've got these two characters chasing each other, and then there is a quick cut to Graham Chapman wearing a loincloth and a laurel wreath on his head, and he's holding an inflatable banana, and he bends over 45 degrees at the waist and says, "Ren."
And then it cuts to like a completely different part of the story with the pantomime horse. It's basically their equivalent of, instead of saying, you know, later that day, they just go, and then, you know? And then they don't have to like add in all this extra story just to get to the point that they want to get to. They could just skip all that and just go, and then, and now for something completely different.
Now for the usual shit.
We went to see the MIFF.
We did. We went to the Melbourne International Film Festival.
Yeah, like we did last year. But last year we only saw one movie and we made a very specific podcast about it. This time it is just part of this podcast.
In passing, we shall tell you about the adventures.
Because we went, once again, we only went once, but we saw two movies this time. We saw Peter Strickland's new film, In Fabric.
We saw an old man jerks off to mannequin bleeding from the vagina.
Vagine.
And a article of clothing which murders people.
Yeah.
Actively.
Yeah.
And we also saw Killer Style.
Yeah, we saw Quentin Dupieux, and we saw his new film, Deerskin.
Or Jean Dujardin.
Yep, Jean Dujardin is in it, and Oscar-winning actor Jean Dujardin plays a man who really wants a deerskin jacket and other deerskin items of clothing.
So is that suede? Because
yes,
yeah, I was unsure particularly. Like I knew that suede was a fabric, but I didn't know particularly what it is. So
I think one of the titles of the movie was like the suede or like suede or something like that, because it's like French, there's a bunch of different titles, you know. So in French, it's called le dame, right?
Which is just the deer, isn't it?
The deer or deerskin or the suede or whatever. So there's those, you know.
Le dame.
I mean, the film he made beforehand was called Au Poste, which translates to like at the post or something. But the English title is Keep an Eye Out.
Right.
Which isn't a translation of the title. It's just the English title.
And I mean, in English, like, we have a word for the fabric made from the skin of deer.
Yeah.
Suede. But, so you could call it that. That would be acceptable.
But the movie calls it deerskin.
Like, I didn't really know, like, I didn't look into what the film was. Usually when Nick and I go to see a film, I want to just sort of go in and just see what it is.
But you went into both of these movies. Well, you'd seen the trailer for In Fabric.
Yes, I had seen the trailer for In Fabric.
But other than that, you pretty much went into this movie blind.
Yeah. So I heard the title Deerskin, I knew it was Quentin Dupieux, and I'd seen his other films.
You'd seen Rubber and Wrong. Is that it? Are those the only ones?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
But so hearing the title, I don't know if I imagined that it was going to be like a hunting thing, if it was going to be like a meat thing.
Okay, yeah.
But it was a man who spends his entire life savings on a jacket made of, and it must be specified, 100% deerskin.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it opens up. He travels to this fella's house to make this purchase, and the guy who's selling the jacket seems a little bit perplexed that someone would want to be paying so much. Like, as if the guy
is wanting to pay him the maximum amount possible.
Mm.
Not like, oh, I think that I've saved up this money because he is charging this. He's decided, I want to spend the maximum amount that I can on this article of clothing.
Yep.
He bankrupts himself to buy this thing, and then continues...
Well, no, I do think the guy was selling it for a large amount.
Yeah, having articles of clothing like I've got a cousin who's bought like all leather pants and an all leather jacket, and they are not cheap. It's really expensive to buy them and to get them tailored. But in the film, it's like 7,000 and a bit euros, and the euro is like so €1 is like $2.20 Australian. So it's a phenomenal amount of money. I think it's more money than I have.
Yeah. Oh, it's undeniably more money than I have.
So, and this guy's almost like he's giving more money than is even like.
Yeah.
Imagine if someone posts on Gumtree like, jacket $1,000, and he's like, dude, $7,000, and he goes, great, and he's so taken aback that he gives him this camera. This digital camera that he owns as a bonus.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, I've got to give you something in addition to this fucking jacket because you've made almost an embarrassment out of me by taking this money from you. And he continues to acquire suede.
Yep, he gets the hat from a dead man.
And
then
boots.
And I think through that decides I want to get more deerskin, so then he gets the boots and the pants. Or does he get the pants?
Yeah, I think that he makes a friend throughout the film who gifts him some pants.
Yes, that's right.
And he gets some gloves, he gets
the end.
boots.
Yep, and that's all of it. He doesn't get a shirt.
And I don't think that it was ever explained why, because there seems to be like this character has a motive. He goes along and he makes a film.
Yeah.
Throughout this movie.
One of his actual motive is he wants to be the only man in the world who owns a jacket. Right? And his jacket has the motive of being the only jacket in the world. It wants to be the only jacket in the world. And so he makes the film in order to just basically steal people's jackets and get rid of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the story of the movie,
and that's amazing.
Yeah. And it was hilarious. It was really good. And as soon as it started along the violent path, we shouldn't necessarily say what happens, just in case the viewer wants to see the movie. But once, like in any Quentin Dupieux film, it gets violent. And it just feels it's so hilarious, even though it's so horrific.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's really it's so graphic. And
yet it's played humorously, and it's fucking hilarious.
It surprised me too.
Oh, yeah.
Because it started off with just this really confusing clothing-related subplot, and then he makes friends with his jacket, him and his jacket have
and he's talking to himself as well. Like, he's talking out loud when his jacket is talking to him.
Oh yeah, he's completely delusional. Like he speaks for the jacket.
It's not even one of those movies where like the jacket just has a voice that the guy himself can hear. He's literally talking out loud whenever like the jacket is speaking.
Yeah.
And
there's
so
no like
funny.
in-world live jacket. It's just him talking to himself, imagining the jacket's talking to him.
Yeah.
And but then it takes a violent turn, and I go, okay, great, it's going to be that film now.
Yeah.
I didn't know, because I didn't walk into this movie knowing anything.
And then the ending is so sudden. But I was like, I wonder where the hell this is going to go. And then I remembered, oh wait, this movie's only an hour and 17 minutes. And then it just ends.
It kind of wraps itself up, because he gets to the point where he's wearing all suede. He's got a hat, a jacket, pants, gloves, boots, and then it ends.
Yeah, exactly.
You go, great. He set out to be covered all in suede. He didn't get everyone to stop wearing a jacket.
Don't spoil it!
Because how could you?
Yeah. And there was a fun little short film on beforehand as well about...
Little animated one.
Yeah.
Little Polish thing.
About a superhero who wants to save people, but then he can't.
Yeah.
Too many people to save.
They take his powers for granted, and he exhausts himself, and then people endanger themselves and he can't save them anymore.
Yep.
He just goes, alright, I'm hanging up a cape.
And the title is Rain, if anyone wants to try and think of something that would make it be called Rain.
It's CP's. He-wee.
He-wee.
He-wee, she.
Why is that so funny? It's not funny, but it is.
Because it's a childish nonsense sound.
Yeah.
And I'm a moron, and I appreciate that.
Exactly.
I'll own it.
Now let's talk about not deerskin, the other one.
About dingus.
Penis.
So, In Fabric,
In Fabric
is one that I went into it
Well-
knowing a little because I'd seen the trailer.
Yeah, and I went. I knew pretty much about as much as you did because I had only seen the trailer.
Yeah, that's
but
what it was.
I knew enough that it was like a parody of the giallo genre, and also like kind of the Hammer horror films of the 50s, which predates the giallo genre. And I knew that it was from the director of a film called Berberian Sound Studio, which is another film I want to watch, which is also a modern day giallo film. The only giallo you'd have seen would be Suspiria, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's the same as me. I think the only giallo I've seen is Suspiria. Too. Anyway,
Carry on.
carry on. But it was cool that Peter Strickland himself actually did come to introduce the film, which is cool.
It felt like a big deal.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to show up as well.
Yeah, well, I
And that
didn't
was
know
cool.
anything about the guy, but
No.
seeing the person that makes the film, and like you go to a cinema and there's a huge screen and there's lots of people that go to see it and you pay money and it's an event. And then you get to see the person
Who made
did
it.
it. Even
Yeah.
if it wasn't, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, it's still cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you could tell he was passionate about it too. It wasn't just like, oh, I made this because money. Which is like, that's motivation if you work at Disney. But
Yeah. If you just drag out one of the old films and you go, okay, can we put a texture on this? Great, we'll re-release it.
we'll get back to that later. But
Dude, what if they did a live-action remake of In Fabric? Would that be
oh, that'd be fucking epic.
killer style?
Killer style.
For those playing along at home, whenever Mr. Madman McDear dude found a piece of suede that he wanted and put on, he would go, "Fuck, killer style."
What was it in French? It was
Style de malade.
yeah, that's it.
I don't know what he says for fuck because I was expecting like merde because
But
that's
it's not.
apparently
I don't think it's meow.
I didn't hear it, and he also doesn't say fuck, but
Yeah.
apparently he does say style de malade, which is like sick style,
Yeah. Epic style.
like malady
yeah.
or malodor, like you stink.
No, you stink. So what's In Fabric about, Ben?
In Fabric it ended up being a film that I didn't expect it to be.
It was like almost 2 films.
Yeah,
Not counting the 10-minute short film that happened beforehand.
not counting the Hungarian folktale where we see a guy's dick.
Well, what it was it was part of an anthology film. So that short film that we saw was one short in a group of other shorts.
Yes. So, In Fabric, as far as the trailer was concerned, I thought was about a woman who goes and buys a haunted dress, and then haunted happenings happen
Yeah.
because of this cursed dress, and it's the typical, oh, something bad happened, you try and get rid of it, and then it comes back.
And I knew it was going to get, like, weird, but I didn't know it was going to get that weird.
Yeah,
you know?
there was a lot of stuff that happened just sort of in addition to the main plot of the characters, but then also, after you have the main plot with this lady and her dress, you then have another half of the film where
The dress-
someone else buys the dress, and
Yeah.
we follow another group of people and this dress. So it's not...
that's not at all, like,
Yeah.
referenced in the trailer at all. So
Exactly.
I like, as soon as it happened, I was like, oh, where is this going to go? Is this just going to be, like, the last 10 minutes of the movie? But no, like, we were once it started, we were only, like, halfway into the movie. So, yeah.
So I thought originally that the woman was the protagonist and supposedly the dress or the spirit in the dress
Yeah.
or the shop that sold it
Yeah.
was the antagonist. But what the film actually is it's a movie about a dress or a shop that sells a haunted dress.
No, it's
and
about the
people
dress
that buy
because
'em.
I don't think any of the other items of clothing in the store were haunted, despite how fucking bonkers and weird the store was. I think the dress itself was the only haunted item they sold.
Yeah, but it seems that this haunted article is either known to be dangerous by the people that sell it, or is made by the people who sell it on purpose. Like they're a witch coven, and instead of like
No,
cursing
remember
people...
it was cursed by the last person who wore the dress. Remember?
Oh, well, yeah, because it...
Yeah.
But where the dress came from before that, because you can
before
see
yeah.
that...
They probably
Yeah.
made it, yeah.
So,
I thought
supposedly...
I thought that you meant that they made it to be haunted.
Well, that's what I'm not sure about, because throughout the film it suggests that there are lots of other people who have owned this dress, and you see implications of foul things that have befallen the people that have owned this dress. But where the dress came from before that, I'm not sure, because the people that sell it seem to be pretty odd, and
Pretty odd is an understatement.
It'd be like if
Myers was run by witches.
if like Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium was like owned by Ozzy Osbourne. It's just
No, Myers is a more... I'd say Myers is a closer comparison because it's a clothes store. Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium is a toy store.
Yeah, but it's just like that there is one magical person, like one magical old man who's basically the figurehead,
And the whole
weird
store is magical, whereas the store in this... The store in this movie isn't particularly weird. It's the people who run it that are fucking weird.
It's the people who run it and the dresses they sell to people. Because
Yeah.
as far as we know, there might be other articles of clothing that come out of there.
Yeah, they
which
could be.
murder people or
Yeah.
and
And
Brienne of Tarth is in it, and she gets eaten out by the son of the protagonist, and that's cool. And they speak French, and there you go. That's the link between the films. Is there's French in both of them,
yeah.
and there's a lovely pair of like HR people, like middle management people that
Yeah.
sit the
And
protagonist
one
down.
of
Like,
them's played by one of the members of the Mighty Boosh.
oh, okay,
Yep.
the one that's not Noel,
Yep. Julian Barrett, I
because
think.
I would have noticed if Noel Fielding was in this movie.
I think his name is Julian Barrett.
Yeah,
And the other guy, who, like, he gave me Matt Lucas vibes, even though he wasn't Matt Lucas.
even though he wasn't a bald fat gay man,
Even though he wasn't Michael.
even though he wasn't David Williams' friend.
Now, what's another topic we can talk about? Because I think... Are we done within Fabric? Are you done within Fabric?
I'm done with you.
Fuck. Killer style.
Oh, you know what else has got killer style?
Hmm.
King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
They released a new album.
They did.
Yeah.
So for those
Pretty epic.
for those of you playing at home, King Gizzard are a band that like to try their hand at a bunch of different things.
So they released an album in like March or April or something called Fishing for Fishies, and that one was like...
It's a boogie woogie kind of psych rock
Yeah,
dealio.
yeah. Boogie, that's the kind of word to use. I was going to use funk, but I think boogie works better.
Yeah. I mean, there's Boogeyman Sam, there's Psy Boogie, there's
Boogie.
all of them sort of boogie, because they've all got like the Jesus, what's it called? I almost had it in my head, but I've lost it. Like a fish in the night. There's a particular rhythm like that, like a you know Lagrange, the song by ZZ Top that goes da 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 da. Shuffle. Right. So
Okay.
there is a musical beat that sort of goes, da 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 da, and that's a shuffle beat.
Okay.
And most of the boogie songs have that kind of a
Okay.
so that's what makes it boogie woogie.
Cool.
For those of you who didn't know.
Every day I'm shuffling.
But King Gizzard have done albums that sound, quite varied. Usually it's all sort of like, it's all under a bedrock of psychedelia blues.
They do a bunch of different genres, but it all still sounds like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, you know?
Yeah, there are certain things that they do that very much, like the compressed vocals and like the guitar lines that follow the vocals, or the vocal lines that follow guitar lines, and the fact that it's huge, and just particular ways that are more production things than musical things.
Yeah.
And they've decided that they wanted to do a thrash metal album.
And they played their hand at like heavy kind of like rock stuff before, but this is the most metal their music has been, and it's hard as fuck.
I mean, compared to a lot of stuff that's out there, like this is it's not that hard. Like
It's like Metallica.
yeah, it's thrash. So
Yeah.
early Metallica, all the
Yeah, it's like the Doom soundtrack.
yeah, well, yeah, cool, because the Doom song is just Master of Puppets. That's just it's basically that. And I have to say, as someone that listens to a lot of early Metallica, it's fantastic. They did a really, really good job at representing the genre.
They being King Gizzard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were talking about Metallica for a second.
Metallica does, a pretty good job at
Well,
being metal.
you were just saying, as someone who listened to a lot of Metallica, I think they did a really good job. And
Yeah.
It kind of sounded like you were just saying that Metallica did a good job.
When I listened to Metallica, I thought Metallica did a really good job at playing thrash metal.
They think I look alike.
That
Yeah.
but also it's gizzy in that there is a definite like public health and environmental and social message in the lyrics.
But also like this sci-fi world building and stuff as well. Yeah.
I suppose like I've heard the Melon say that there is a story of some sort, like there's meant to be like a metal concept album.
I don't know if it necessarily has like a full lore to it or like a full story like 2112 or something.
Yeah.
But like it definitely has elements of sci-fi and dystopia and stuff, as well as its like message about climate change and like global warming and stuff.
Yeah. Like I read it as just being separate songs with a similar kind of concern.
Well, no, I do think for example, I think Mars from the Rich does follow lyrically from Planet B. Like I think like they work well. I haven't really listened to the lyrics of the other songs. But
And Venusian 1,
yeah.
because they end Venusian 1 saying there is one Planet B,
Yeah.
which I suppose, I don't know, they're suggesting is Venus.
But yeah, because of the fact that they say there is no Planet B, and then they decide to say rich people can go to Mars, you know? So there is no substitute for Earth, but the rich people can go to Mars. Mars is not necessarily a substitute for Earth. We're getting a bit too deep into this King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album. Because these boys, they just make music for fun. Like, they're not expecting... I guess they might be expecting, but they're not necessarily making something that's super deep and, like, lore-rich and stuff, you know? They're just making fun music.
I mean, well, compared to some of the album, like, isn't Murder of the Universe like
Murder
one
of the
sort
Universe,
of
yeah, but
consistent rock opera?
They have their own, like, story, like, episodic story, you know? And even then, though, the music came before the story, of course. Yeah. And that seems to be the thing with all their music. Like, the and that seems to be the thing with all good music, you know? I think putting music ahead of lyrics makes better music. And if you write the lyrics first, obviously you get better lyrics or something. But I always think I prefer good music over good lyrics, in my opinion. Like,
Okay.
I like that. That's just how I like to listen to. Like, I can like listen to good rap, but I don't know. Sometimes if the music's not as good as the rap, it's not as like listenable. So something like Jaden Smith's album wouldn't be nearly as good without the really good production value behind it.
I
you know?
agree. I agree.
Yeah. Or same with like Brockhampton or like pretty much all the rappers I do listen to have good production value in their music as well as being fantastic rappers, you know?
Yeah, and
Like you can have it one way or the other, but it just doesn't appeal to me as much. Like I've listened to a bit of Lil Uzi Vert, right? And he's got some good production value, but I'm not a fan of his lyrical style or his voice or the way he writes his songs. And so I'm not going to be a big Lil Uzi Vert song just because I like the way it's like some of the songs sound. You know?
But
like on the other side, if you've got really good lyrics, but the production design is quite lacking, it again doesn't seem that like listenable to me, you know?
And
I can't think of an example of that though.
yeah, well, my opinion has changed over the years because originally, in late high school, when I was writing lyrics but not music, because I could write lyrics because I spoke English and I couldn't play.
Do you now?
Yeah, it's I'm getting there. Hopefully, I'll be fluent one day.
That's what I used to like. I wanted to write songs in high school as well, and I said I would focus on the lyrics.
Yeah.
And now I want to do the opposite.
Exactly, yeah. So I couldn't play an instrument, so I wasn't really writing songs, but I was writing lyrics.
Exactly.
And so a lot of what I was listening to was I was listening for lyrics, and then as I started playing more music, I would pay less attention to the lyrics because I was thinking more about what was going on musically. And I've noticed that, yeah, I used to pay a lot of attention to the words, and now I'm not as much, but I'm able to enjoy certain artists depending on the emphasis. So like with Bob Dylan, a lot of his music is really interesting, but largely it's sort of 3-chord stuff and it's mostly lyrical. There are some bands that you can put on and read something at the same time and have the music going because the music is really lush, and maybe not pay attention and just sort of hear the vocal melody. But if you put, the times are a changing on and you don't pay attention, you miss the whole album and you just end up hearing 10 songs of jangly acoustic guitar and go, So
Well, yeah, like obviously you can have good, like great lyrics and songs and have great messages and stuff, and I'm not saying that diminishes any song. Great lyrics are great lyrics.
Exactly.
I'm just saying that like I like to listen more to the music than I do the lyrics, because on a first listen that's what I'm going to be paying attention to, right? And so if I don't like a song on the first listen, there's not a good chance I will be listening to it a second time.
yeah.
So something like well, actually I'm not going to pull up an example, but yeah, like if I listen to a song for the first time, I'm usually listening to the music first, and then on subsequent listens, I'll listen to the lyrics and be like, wow, the lyrics are really good, But if I don't like the song on the first listen, and even if it has great lyrics, I might miss out on those lyrics because I don't listen to it a second time because the music's not good,
Yeah.
And that's the thing I've learned with a lot of pop music. Even if all the lyrics are different, a lot of it does sound the same. Even if the melodies are different, even if the way that the production's done, it all still sounds like a lot of the same music, which is why I don't listen to pop, like not to be that guy. But because I do listen to it on the radio, for example, because I used to just be a passenger in the car with my headphones on and just listening to the music that I like to listen to.
Yeah.
But because I've started driving, I listen to the radio. And so I get to hear what the kids listen to,
Yeah.
and a lot of it's crap, but there are some good songs out there as well.
Exactly.
There's one by Taylor Swift that I actually quite like, not just because of it does have good lyrics, but the music is quite well done too.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but it's something about like Twitter trolls.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair. And like,
You Need to Calm Down. I think that's what it's called.
okay. And like, at my work, we have the some sort of radio, and it's not like Triple M or something. It's like a Woolworths radio. I don't know what it is, but usually there are about 10 songs that I notice that are always sort of on.
Yeah.
And some of the simplicity of the music kind of shits me. And like, there are definitely artists that I listen to which are kind of musically simple. Like Syd Barrett is one of my absolute favorites because he's weird as shit. And a lot of the lyrics are just so off the wall. But if you were just to play the chords, it would be exceedingly simple.
Well, a lot of electronic dance music can be quite simple. On
It
level.
probably
but then
should
when
be.
Like for Deadmau5, for example, he's one of those guys who makes simple dance songs that you can easily dance to.
Yeah.
But if you give them like an actual listen, you'll realize how complex they really are. Because there's a lot of just stuff going on in the background.
But that's music produced for function. So that's not necessarily listening music, that's dancing music.
A lot of his earlier stuff is very repetitive and simple, but his new stuff is not dance music at all. It's either classical piano compositions, which he did release an EP of, which was cool. But like his newest album, 2016 album, which is what it was called. That one was very much dance music with some experimental stuff in there. But his album from 2014, While One Is Greater Than Two, that is probably his most experimental album ever. And while it's got elements of like either being really simplistic or being really complex and being stuff that would be hard to compose, and it's just cool.
Yeah.
That's why I like Deadmau5. He's better than a lot of other electronic dance musicians because he doesn't just insert synth here, boom, got a song. He actually puts the time and effort into making something that not just sounds good and is easy to dance to, but also is quite complex and musically rich.
Like it sounds like effort.
Yeah, not like the Chainsmokers where they just like pick a few chords and do the entire thing in those few chords.
Yeah.
Both the singing, the chorus, and the synth. Even like the other instruments, like they'll have... I listened to one of their songs, I don't know what it's called or who is the singer, but the way the song progresses is exactly the same all 3 minutes of it. The synth and the guitar are the exact same melody, including and the vocals go in that melody as well.
Yeah.
And it's boring.
Oh my god,
It's
that's
so boring to listen to.
that's what there are
The Chainsmokers are the worst at this.
Yeah.
And yet they're incredibly popular because I guess, I mean, time and time again, everything is proven. General public doesn't like new or engaging. They want the same shit over and over again, which is why the new Lion King movie made $1 billion.
Yeah. And I mean, there are a couple of songs at work that really, really explicitly shit me. And I don't know the names of them because I've never looked them up and I don't care. But what it is they will have... It'll open and there will be a melody of some sort.
Yeah.
And played by like a synth. And verse 1 will start and the singer will sing that melody. And then you'll hear... It'll continue and verse 2 will happen and the singer will sing the same melody again. And then there'll be an instrumental break. And that instrumental break will be that melody played again by a synth, and then the chorus will come in, and that might be different. And then verse 3 will happen, and it'll be that melody that you've heard 16 times already.
Most of the
again.
time, the chorus will also be that melody again.
Yep.
If not played by the synth, maybe also the piano or guitar doing the exact same melody. There was one, 5 Seconds of Summer has a new song that I actually quite like.
Yeah.
I think I can't remember what it's called, but it's like kind of synth pop, and I like it. It's kind of it's cool. Yeah.
I'm not.
You're not stingy, but you know good music when you hear it.
Well, yeah.
So even, like you don't necessarily listen to a lot of rap or like electronic music, but you still aren't like adverse to it, you know?
I'm not opposed to the idea of rap or the idea of pop or the idea of something that came out within this year, because like Billie Eilish, her most recent album I liked a lot.
I haven't listened to it.
When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go is the album. And I think that was really good. It's it's a young girl singing. There's a lot of electronic elements to it. It's not it's not ELP. It's not the most complex music ever. But I liked it. It was good. But there is a lot of shit that comes out. But that's always been the case.
She's the same age as my brother.
For every decade of music, for as long as there's been radio, there has been a glut of awful stuff, and then a handful of things which are nice and good and stuff that you will remember once the decade is over. She's one of those people that have got 3 or 4 names. Like she's Billy blah blah
She's
blah.
William
Irish.
Eyelash.
She's not quite. Do you know what one of her middle names is? Fantastic. Do you know what it is?
Oh, I thought it was fantastic.
No.
Now, what is it?
It's Billy Fantastic Eilish Finnegan. It's Pirate.
Oh yeah, no, I saw that. I'm getting a call from. Anyway, so what were we talking about?
I don't know.
Music.
My nads.
Haha, funny. Well, I mean, I've been listening to a lot of music recently because I've been wanting to try and just like listen to more of the artists I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
So like Brockhampton, for example, I only like had listened to a few songs that I really like, but only a few of them. And so I decided, well, I'm going to listen to all 3 of their albums of like, Saturation 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And they're good. Very good, nice. Yes.
A very good nice.
Very good, nice.
As opposed to a not very good nice.
And then another thing that happened was I listened to like a full album of an artist I'd never heard of because I just liked one song.
Was that Hawaii?
No. Hawaii Part 2. I found like a month ago. I'm talking about like the day I listened to the 3 Brockhampton albums, I'd also listened to another album by Rosemary Fairweather or something. Wait.
Was she a duchess?
Yeah, it sounds like a Harry Potter character.
taking you for divinity is Professor Fairweather.
Yeah, Rosemary Fairweather.
She's the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher in book 9.
Because you know the YouTube channel like David Berkson or something. I can't remember.
Berkson.
I can't remember his name.
David Dean Burkhart.
Indie music galore. Like I think he posted like some Tame Impala and some MGMT and stuff there. Anyway, he posted a song called Chemicals by Rosemary Fairweather, and I'm like, this shit good. I sent it to you. And then I listened to the full album, and this shit good is good stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah, like it's like fairy, like it's like pop music made by a fairy. That's what it sounds like.
Okay.
She's got this very like breathy, high-pitched voice, and it's just very pleasing to listen to, but also the music is just really nice as well. And it's like good production, good electronic stuff. But St. Vincent's an artist I listened to a lot of recently. I listened to all of her albums.
Yeah, and you listen to Love This Giant?
Yes, that's the only one you've listened to.
Yeah, but I've listened to it a lot.
I've listened to her album St. Vincent a few times, and I was introduced to her many years ago through the song Digital Witness, right? And I hadn't listened to anything else until she released like the new album Mass Seduction. And so when that came out, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna check this out because it's new and it's from an artist I've heard one song of. And I listened to it, I'm like, it's good shit.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. Well, most of it. Some of it I didn't enjoy, but I've grown to enjoy it more upon subsequent listens. And then so recently I realized, I've only listened to Mass Seduction. And while I was overseas, I listened to a bunch of other songs by her. And I'm like, I'm going to listen to all of it. And I only recently got around to actually listening to all of her music, and I really enjoyed it. And it was really cool hearing her evolution, because like some artists, they do like the same kind of music, and so there's not really that much of an evolution.
Yeah.
But she really does have like, she starts off with this kind of like jazzy indie rock vibe, mainly like with real instruments and like piano, guitar, that kind of stuff. But then as she progresses, is a lot more like experimental electronic kind of stuff, like pop music kind of enters into the fray. And then like her newest album, Mass Seduction, is like a full like pop album, and it's really well done. But it's also quite experimental. It's not the kind of pop you'd hear on the radio, except maybe the song Los Angeles or something.
It's not dissimilar to the way that Kevin Parker's music has progressed, because the early stuff is just all guitar, it's lo-fi,
like psychedelic
and
rock
then it's
and
gotten
stuff.
progressively more electronic up to the point where it's like, okay, he's
Yeah,
it's
Currents
all
wasn't
synth.
my favorite album of his.
I enjoyed it immensely, but I didn't think that I would.
Yeah, no, I love it, but it's not my favorite album. I think my favorite album is Lonerism. But I'm really excited to hear what he does next, because obviously Currents was his first like electronic kind of pop album. So hearing him evolve on that and to do more weird stuff with it, which is probably what he's gonna do, or at least do more with it, you know. If it's even better than Currents, I'm gonna fucking love it. It might be my favorite album of Tame Impala yet. You know?
I enjoyed it because it kind of challenged my taste, because I really enjoyed all the sort of heavy riffing of Lonerism, because like at the time, anything that sounded like, you know,
well, that's like one song.
That's
like the only song that is like that.
Yeah, but
Elephant is like the Elephant is such a weird song, because they're like probably the most famous Tame Impala song of that time, like before Currents came out, because I think Currents got like The Less I Know the Better, which became like, I think, the song that most people know from Tame Impala.
Yeah, which
is weird because it's nowhere near his best song. It's a good song, but it's not his best by far. It's very much something you'd hear on the radio.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of his more accessible ones,
Yeah,
apart from the
exactly.
fact that it's got bullshit in the
But you can edit that out.
Yeah, like he played on late night television and all that. But that was
yeah.
kind of right in my Yeah, all the sort of heavy 60s psychedelia was right up my alley because I think I just listened to Sergeant Pepper at the time.
Yeah.
And then when Currents came out and it was a lot more electronic, it was still melodic and riffy in a lot of the ways that I enjoyed Kevin Parker's music, but there are elements in there that were new to me.
Yeah.
And as a result, I came out feeling like I'd grown a little bit musically.
See, what's funny is that it's the opposite for me in terms of music taste, because I listened to a lot of electronic stuff in my youth, and so going into Tame Impala was my basically my introduction into more like rock style. And it's not to say I didn't listen to rock, because I'd listened to the Beatles and Queen as a small lad, and but like in high school, my music taste was firmly in like electronic music, right?
Yeah.
A lot of Deadmau5, but then I mean there's still rock in there. So Pendulum did a lot of like electronic rock stuff, and so like that was mainly the kind of rock I listened to outside of Queen and the Beatles, you know, and a bit of Rush.
By the time that we were really becoming friends and spending more time together, you were just playing me Skrillex.
That is true. I did used to listen to a lot of Skrillex as well. Yeah, a lot of dubstep, but dubstep was like maybe 2 or 3 years, whereas I've been listening to Pendulum for forever. You know, I've actually been recently getting back into Claypex. They introduced me to dubstep.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, this is good dubstep. This is good dubstep, because it's not like other dubstep where it's just loud for the sake of being loud.
Yeah.
This is actually like rhythmically good.
I had a huge distaste for anything related to it. I didn't like the idea of it. I didn't like the whoa, weird.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Tame Impala was like kind of the stepping stone into listening to a lot more rock, and especially more psychedelic rock and indie rock and stuff.
He's like the gateway drug to a few different
things.
Well,
I hope he continues to be, because I hope people listen to Currents and then decide they want to listen to Lonerism or Innerspeaker and be like, I want to listen to more of this, you know? Instead of only listening to Currents, and then not acknowledging the other stuff. Because I hope that's not what happens.
And because he's one where there is variety, but there is also like there's progression, there's crossover. It's not like if, for example, if you listened to AM by Arctic Monkeys and then you went, great, this is the kind of music that I like of this band, and then you listen to Tranquility Base, Hotel and Casino and you go, what? And you get upset. But at least if you listened to Lonerism, you could go and listen to Innerspeaker and go, great, that sounded like that.
I think that's the reason why everyone recommends your first King Gizzard album to be I'm In Your Mind Fuzz, because it's got variety in it.
Yeah.
But it's also very, very much like it's such a King Gizzard album.
Yeah.
You know?
There's weird shit and screaming, but there's also flute, but there's also like riff.
And so you can use that as a stepping stone to realize what area of King Gizzard do you want to listen to more of, instead of just going, oh, I'm going to listen to the first album, then I'm going to listen to it in order, because that is not necessarily the best course to choose for King Gizzard, because their music is so varied. You could listen to 12 Bar Brews and be like, I want to listen to more of this, and then immediately listen to the next one and like, this is not more of this. This is a country western spoken word concept album. This is not the surf rock I wanted to listen to. So, yeah. But when you start with I'm In Your Mind Fuzz, you'd be like, okay, I really liked the first 4 tracks on this. Okay, so that means go and listen to stuff like Murder of the Universe or Nonagon Infinity. So I really liked like the more upbeat, like fluty kind of songs. Okay, we'll go listen to
Paper Mache Dream Balloon.
Or I liked the like really heavy stuff. Oh no, I like the more like kind of funky stuff. You know, they have so many different kinds of music.
One meandering non-conversation later.
I listened to the Beatles in high school and stuff, but like the only Beatles I had exposure to as a kid was the album One, right?
Yeah.
And then in high school I listened to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which and a few songs from Magical Mystery Tour.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the only other Beatles I listened to. And so more recently I listened to all of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Spotify.
No, YouTube for me.
Yeah, well, with me, it's like, yeah, I knew like a couple of their sort of boy band songs, and I'd listened to the White Album and Peppers a lot.
Oh, well, I had listened to the White Album last year as well.
But there was a lot of stuff where I hadn't gone and listened to the album as a whole, so I hadn't heard Revolver, I hadn't heard Rubber Soul.
I did listen to Revolver as well, and what's the one that has back in the USSR?
That's the White Album.
Okay, so not that one. There's another one.
Had you heard had you heard Abbey Road?
That's it. Yeah, Abbey Road was the other one. So those are the 3 albums I'd listened to last year, and so I listened to the rest of it in the span of like 2 days.
You should just listen to all of their music.
And I did, and it's very good. And it is interesting to start from the first album and going and hearing the evolution from like a kind of a poppy boy band kind of music to more like kind of psychedelic rock music.
It got more complicated, certainly, because there aren't any like weird drum loop shit, LSD trips in
Please Please Me.
Yeah, but there is in Revolver.
Yeah.
There's no fucking. There's none of.
The 60s. The 60s were a weird time. And speaking of the 60s, Tarantino has a new movie out.
Oh god, boy, does he ever!
Yeah, and because of the new movie, he did a thing called Tarantino's Swinging 60s, which SBS picked up, or SBS World Movies. So yeah, Tarantino's Swinging 60s was like a series of movies that he wanted people to watch as like, this is the kind of like films he used as inspiration for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So not necessarily films that inspired the story, more films that inspired the aesthetic. And so I'll bring up the list because I actually managed to watch all of them and they were all on at like 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
So they were on pretty late, and I didn't know if I would be able to watch all of them just
because your bedtime is like.
I don't have a bedtime, but just in case work the next day because I got a job.
Oh. How long have you been unemployed, Nick? 21 years?
Yep. I got a job at JB Hi-Fi, which is like my actual like some people it's weird if you say, oh, I have a favorite shop, but JB Hi-Fi would probably classify as that if I were to have one, just because I'm such a loyal customer, for lack of a word.
Well, I suppose if you're like, my favorite shop is Thupri, you're an airhead, fuck you. But if you, which is terrible. But you as a movie buff, it's like it's not unreasonable for you to like JB Hi-Fi.
Well, yeah, especially because they have a lot of like special editions of movies and exclusive stuff there.
Yeah,
it's very movie centric, and like most of the time, if there is a movie available in Australia, you can get it at JB Hi-Fi.
Yeah,
if it's in print. Like if they've stopped making it, then it won't show up there.
But as far as the music that they sell, it's not comprehensive in the slightest because they don't sell All Things Must Pass by George Harrison, which is bullshit.
Another meandering non-conversation later.
Did you want to do, or did you want to just talk about the movie? Because we could be here for 7
No,
years.
I was just going to list the movies. I wasn't going to actually like
So there's Bob, Paul, Steve, John, and Frank.
Yeah, that one. So yeah, and I watched them all on days. I'm just checking my Letterboxd account because I put them in there. Okay, yeah. So on the 12th, I watched Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. Oh yeah, pretty much all of these films I probably wouldn't have watched without this thing.
No, probably not.
Yeah, except for Easy Rider. On the 13th, I watched Cactus Flower. On the 14th, I watched Easy Rider. On the 15th, I watched Model Shop. On the 16th, I watched Getting Straight. On the 19th, I watched The Wrecking Crew. On the 20th, I watched Hammerhead. On the 21st, I watched Gunman's Walk. And on the 22nd, I watched Arizona Raiders.
I watched it. I watched movies, all the best movies. I went to Wharton. My uncle, he's in nuclear, and he said to me, he's a very, very smart man, good genes. I got bone spurs, but then the Iranians, they just killed us.
Model Shop was one I watched on the same night that we saw, same day as we saw Tarantino's new film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Oh. And where did we see that, Ben?
The Astor.
Yeah. What else did we see at the Astor? Grindhouse, you fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And we saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in a lovely little 35mm print,
Yeah.
which was cool. It made it look a lot more like a film made in the 60s.
I printed it off at home myself.
Yep,
I
out
brought
of
it in.
his bum, haha. And what did you think of the movie? What did you think of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
In Hollywood.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it immensely, but just the other day I was staying at my grandparents and Grandpa came in and said, "Oh, did you hear that? That new Tarantino movie's awful." And I've gone, "What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, my friend went to see it and he kept falling asleep." And I've gone, "Well, it's a long movie, Grandpa." I was going, "All right." So apparently he had a friend who went to see...
If you fall asleep during a movie, you can't really say that it's bad.
He
You
went
can
to
say
see
it's-
this 2.5 hour movie and fell asleep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes it can be like... Sometimes it can be based on the quality of the movie if you fall asleep.
If it doesn't engage you
Yeah.
and it's long,
Like,
but
I
this
saw-
one kept me...
I saw a film with my friend Scott called High Life.
Yeah.
And the movie's like less than 2 hours. It's like an hour 50 something.
It's about people that drink weeds.
No. It's about people in space
Oh, okay, well that makes
who
sense.
fuck. And
Style.
yeah, and he fell asleep during the movie, and he actually started snoring, so I had to wake him up. And
So
I
as
think
to not be rude.
it's not necessarily a good thing if the most interesting thing that happened was the movie turned off
Oh, okay.
halfway through, and it's not the power didn't go out. The projector just stopped working, and once they got the movie started up again, you could actually hear a few people groaning in the audience, be like, "Oh fuck, more of this shit."
This again.
It's very slow, very slow, to the point where it's not necessarily highly engaging. Robert Pattinson was really good in it,
Yep.
but Robert Pattinson's really good in everything except Twilight because he didn't give a shit about Twilight. He did not. He hates it more than anyone.
Was that like after filming the first one? Like, did he go into it just thinking like, "Oh fuck, it's a vampire comedy. I don't want to
Not
do
even
this
a
film."
comedy.
I don't know why I said vampire comedy.
Because no one takes it seriously. Not even the actors who are in it.
But yeah, I enjoyed Tarantino's new movie. I thought that it was a brilliant homage to, like, even though I'm not super familiar with and in reverence of that time period, I felt that just the way that certain portions of the film were presented as just being like, the whole aspect ratio changes, it gets all grainy, and it's just that you can tell that he spent time trying to replicate a style of film that he felt was important.
There's a good chance that, like, when shooting bits that were made to look like the other films, that he used, like, old film stock.
Oh, I bet that he did.
There is a chance, but because of the fact that there are shots like that in the trailer, there's a chance that all they did was change the already shot footage. Because I'm pretty sure I remember, like, did anybody order fried sauerkraut being in the trailer and not being nearly as grainy and degraded as it was in the movie?
Maybe they filmed it with 2 cameras.
They might have, but because of the crazy zoom that happens in that shot, I highly doubt it.
Is that not something that could be done?
It's very hard to do, because you would have to very specifically sync up 2 cameras with 2 separate people doing the zoom on those 2 cameras in exact sync.
Yeah, but Tarantino's pretty good. Tarantino knows.
I wouldn't put it past him, but I also think it would be considerably easier, because the movie's already shot on film anyway.
Yeah.
It'd be considerably easier just to do a duplicate of that negative and degrade it to make it look like it was from the 60s.
Like, you put it in a room and you call it ugly and it smells.
Exactly, yeah.
You
Exactly, like, that's how you make movies look bad.
is you degrade them by making fun of them.
Yeah.
You
That's how they made the Oscar-winning French film The Artist starring Jean Dujardin. That's how they made it look like a film from the 20s. They just fucking shat on it.
Yeah, you throw mud at it and you fart in its face.
Yeah.
And you say that its hair is stupid.
Yeah. And you say, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." That's not saying much for you.
I once shot your elephant in my pajamas.
What is that you said earlier? Like, I once shot an elephant out of my ass. How it got in my ass, I don't know.
Outside of a dog, a book is a man's best friend. Inside of a dog is very hard to read.
Classic comedy from Benjamin Weinstein.
Yeah, fuck her Marx.
Yeah.
That's me.
That is what I have your name in my contacts.
Good, it should be. Only you can call me by my true name.
Fucker.
Yeah, I'll release all my music under, fucker et al.
What did you think of Margot Robbie in the movie?
I think that her presence in it was oversold. I think.
Yeah, they definitely her being like the third billed actor in the movie was a bit of a it was a bit of a lie.
Yeah, I think that because she's kind of a hot ticket in Hollywood at the moment.
Well, there's
she's a
that and the
recognizable
fact
face.
that she plays Sharon Tate, right? And it was made like a big deal. Like the same thing was made with the big deal about Charles Manson being in the movie.
Yeah.
He's in literally one scene for about 15 seconds.
Because the whole thing about like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood being set in a particular year in a neighborhood in this industry, and it was about, right, we're orienting ourselves towards the Manson family murders. That's when this took place.
Yeah.
And in the trailer, Manson is in it. The only time that he's in the film, in the trailer.
Yep.
The Manson family in the trailer a couple different times.
Yep.
Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate is in the trailer a couple times.
And it's made, and like a lot of the marketing and a lot of the buzz around the film made it seem like the Manson family murders were the central focus of the film, but they weren't. The movie's about Rick Dalton and his stunt double, Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Cliff Booth.
I don't think that it's as segregated as the two plots in Suburbicon.
Yeah.
I think that it's interwoven a bit because Rick Dalton lives next to the Polanskis.
Well, to be fair, in Suburbicon, the two plots live next door to each other as well.
That is true. It's and like Brad Pitt's stunt double. Fuck. Brad Pitt meets people who are involved in that.
He meets members of the cult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He meets the Manson family before they get introduced as the Manson family.
He punches the shit out of one of them.
We see the people from the family around, dotted throughout the film.
And then they literally get involved with them in the third act. We won't spoil what happens.
But like, if this film was like a Seinfeld episode, and it was mostly about the piano performance and George's girlfriend, and then they just sort of stick Kramer in there. Margot Robbie is Kramer.
Yeah.
Right? She's recognizable. We know who she is. She's distinct.
And we know that she's Sharon Tate as well.
But she's not really part of the main thing. She's in there. She's flavor. She enhances the film, but this film is fundamentally about George or about Rick Dalton.
Well, and the thing is, but the great thing about her being Sharon Tate in the film is the fact that it helps everyone remember Sharon Tate not just as a victim of the Manson family murders, but as like an actress in her own right and a lovely person,
I mean, in the film, she's played off as just kind of like a ditz who's married to Roman Polanski and is, sleeping with someone who's not.
But
I'm in the movie. I'm the klutz.
She's someone who's proud that she's in a movie.
Eh.
So many people moved to Hollywood specifically to become an actor or an actress, right? The amount of people that actually get into the industry is a small amount.
Yes.
So the fact that she was in these movies is something to be proud of, even if they're not great movies. She managed to get into her dream job. And so the fact that she walked past this theater that is showing a movie that she's in, and so she goes, I'm in the movie. Can I come in?
Most people would be, but I didn't come away coming into this movie. All I knew, actually, I didn't even know who Sharon Tate was until you told me. Because I knew about the Manson family murders. I knew that Roman Polanski's wife was murdered.
Yeah.
I didn't know who Sharon Tate was
Okay.
until this movie was announced, and you told me what this movie was about. I didn't know who she was, and then I came out of this movie knowing that she was an actress married to Roman Polanski.
I knew who she was. I knew that she was an actress married to Roman Polanski and that she'd been murdered by the Manson family. But I didn't know much about her outside of that.
Yeah. I don't feel like I've come away
I didn't even know
knowing...
she was pregnant until I watched this movie.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I didn't feel like I came away thinking, wow, that Sharon Tate was a nice lady.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that
Well, after
She was just in
so
it.
what happened? Yeah, after watching this movie and then watching the movie that's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, after watching The Wrecking Crew, because that was one of the films in Tarantino's Swinging 60s.
Yeah.
After watching that, you get an actual like better idea of the like that she is quite a talented comedic actress in that film.
Yeah.
She's actually genuinely, and I'm not just being nice because she's dead. She is genuinely the best thing about that movie.
Well, that's
the
a
main
good thing.
character's a bit of a shithead.
Yeah.
Like, the movie's trying to be Austin Powers, like, before Austin Powers was a thing, but I think it's trying a little too early, because Bond is still relatively new. I mean, I'm sure there's probably already 50 Bond movies at that time in 1968. But it's not necessarily the big cultural phenomenon that it is now, right? And so it's being this parody of like Bond and spy movies a bit too early. I'm not saying it's ahead of its time. I'm saying it's a bit too early.
Like it was still in the heyday of spies, so they hadn't quite waited long enough to start making fun of it because people were still seriously into it.
Like I like Spaceballs is fine because it not just made fun of Star Wars but also Star Trek and the sci-fi genre in general.
Yeah.
But Star Wars was this huge thing when it came out, right? So you could easily make a parody of it 2 years later, right? Before the second one came out. But something like Bond was pretty big, but like nowadays it's considerably bigger than it was in the 60s. Like Bond is a household name. James Bond is a name that everyone knows.
Yeah.
Everyone in the 60s may have known who James Bond was, but it wasn't nearly as big as it is now.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
But this film, I felt, up until people start getting violent, I think that is actually a reasonably wholesome movie.
Yeah.
Because most of it is about Rick Dalton. It's about this guy sort of coming to grips with the industry that he's in and learning to enjoy it. Because originally it was like, oh, it was a job.
Yeah.
He wakes up every morning and he's Rick Dalton and he does his thing.
Oh, Mum's
But it
calling
was
again. Fuck's sake. Hello.
So yeah, it's more about Rick Dalton being a ritzy actor for the sake of status and for the sake of the paycheck and the lifestyle it affords him.
Yeah.
But then he runs into this little girl who's an actress who's so method and so into it, even though she's, 8 in the movie?
Yeah.
Meant to be. And he goes, what if I enjoy this as a craft? What if I enjoy honing my art?
I think he wanted to. He didn't just want to be taken seriously. He did also want to like act, but the thing is, he wasn't being given the roles that he wanted, and so he wasn't satisfied with it.
Well, maybe he became jaded over time.
But yeah, once he did meet that little girl, he did take pleasure in the roles that he'd been given.
Yeah, he takes inspiration from this tiny person who is an actress because she wants to perform, and he sort of, I don't know, either he discovers or he rediscovers his love for acting as opposed to just his need to be in Hollywood.
And he also kind of does the really good performance almost out of spite because he kept forgetting his lines earlier.
Well,
so So he inspires himself because he's like, well, I fucking embarrassed myself, so I'm going to do a fucking fantastic job in the next bit.
Yeah, for him, because he doesn't want to be seen as some old hack. He doesn't want to be a has-been. He wants to be a performer. And so for his own sake, he goes and he gives it his best. And everyone on the set and the director and his co-star and himself end up happy with it.
Yeah.
He doesn't just get money so he can continue living in the Hollywood Hills. He does it so he can be an actor.
Well, that's what he does when he's in Italy. He just does the movies for the paycheck.
Yeah. Because they'll pay him to do it.
What I like, though, is how in-depth Tarantino thought about, like, the world that he built. So, because he thought so in-depth about, like, Rick Dalton's filmography. There's, like, when you look at, like, the Tarantino wiki, there's, like, a full fake IMDb page worth of, like, film credits. Films that were mentioned both in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and just mentioned by Tarantino that haven't been touched on by Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He talked about that a few times. So with the Tarantino Swinging 60s thing, he and his co-host introduce the film at the beginning, have a little discussion in the midpoint of the movie, and then a little mini discussion at the end, while also like saying see ya, you know?
Yeah.
And so his little section in the middle of Gunman's Walk was basically less dedicated to talking about Gunman's Walk and more dedicated to talking about Rick Dalton and his fake filmography. And they even had like posters and stuff show up for movies that aren't even mentioned in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's just crazy how in-depth he's thought about Rick Dalton's filmography and this parallel universe that he's created.
So it's like...
Because he has created, like, I think Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, True Romance, which is a Tony Scott film written by him, then not Jackie Brown or Kill Bill or Death Proof, but then Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, The Hateful Eight, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah. So all those films take place in the Tarantino-verse.
Yeah.
And so there are characters that kind of overlap, and you know, obviously there's like Red Apple cigarettes and Big Kahuna Burger and stuff. But yeah, and it's just really cool to see some kind of consistency within like this world that he's created, you know?
It's like it's the director / PR man's version of turning up in character, like when Sacha Baron Cohen would turn up as Bruno or Borat. So he's talking about some fake person's film oeuvre in a real film discussion. It's like, oh yeah, so in the 14 Fists of McCluskey.
Well, no, I some things he does. He didn't do it for a lot of them, but he would mention like the kind of films that came out that inspired obviously the films that he came up with, but also talks about like certain films that do exist and that if they were made in this fake world, perhaps Rick Dalton would have taken this role instead of this actor, you know?
Right.
Like he did that with Gunman's Walk and with Arizona Raiders. He said, like, oh, there's a certain actor in this movie that I think Rick Dalton probably could have played that role. Perhaps. He's not saying, oh, I think this movie would have been better with Rick Dalton. He's just saying, I think, like, in a world where this movie was made and Rick Dalton existed, he could possibly could have taken... He probably could have done this role or something, you know.
I mean, Marlon Brando is pretty good, but this fake actor that I created, he would have done it better.
Yeah. No, that's not the vibe he gave off. The vibe he gave off was like, oh, well, if Arizona Raiders was like if Rick Dalton was a real guy, he probably like there's a chance that he could have been cast in this role in Arizona Raiders, you know.
Could have cast him.
He could have cast him in this role. That's not how Tarantino cast him.
Okay.
So is that all we have to say about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Go see it.
Yes, very good. Another film that you should go see is Midsommar.
Midsommar?
Go see it. I love horror movies, but this is the best this year.
You love a scary?
I like the scary. Because Hereditary was probably my favorite horror movie of last year. One of my favorite movies of last year. And Midsommar, I think tops Hereditary, not necessarily in scares, but just as a film. So I think Hereditary is a better horror movie, but Midsommar is a better movie, in my opinion.
I have a vision of some Nordic people in like a maypole. Mm-hmm. What is it about?
So Midsommar is about basically a group of American students go to Sweden and celebrate this 9-day festival.
Okay. Is Midsummer an actual festival?
It is a real thing, but there's real creative license taken with it in this movie.
Is it made by a Swede, or is it just that someone has taken a folk festival?
It's made by an American director, Ari Aster, who he directed Hereditary, which is an American film as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And what's funny though is like 2 of the 4 American characters in this movie aren't American. One of them's British and one of them's Irish. So. But I would not have known at all if I didn't watch like the interviews with them after having seen the film.
It's not surprising
because I wasn't familiar with Florence Pugh's work before having seen Midsommar. But she's going to be in the upcoming Little Women film, and she's going to be in Black Widow. So she's making a really good progress in her career for a 23-year-old.
I mean, I think a lot of actors.
She's one of those people who's just kind of come out of nowhere and blown up.
Like, I haven't gone to...
But she is a really good actress. She's not just doing it because she's pretty, which she is.
Yeah, but that's kind of a requirement in a lot of films anyway. But, like, I was never trained classically in any way. I didn't go to film school or whatever. But I have a feeling that a lot of actors have to learn, like, your Communal Garden Californian accent just to be employable. Because if you're from a country that isn't America, there is a good chance that you'll have to pretend to be an American so you can be hired.
Yeah.
Because you can't just turn up to set and be Australian unless they need it.
Spider-Man and Doctor Strange are both British actors.
With breadstick
doing New York accents.
Hey,
Hey, it's a me,
forget
New
about it.
York man. But yeah, I mean, there are plenty of movies made in Britain, but
It's me, Epenthesis.
and but yeah, Midsummer. It's one of those films that it's just so beautiful to look at.
Yeah,
It's such a gorgeous film.
it's pretty.
And it's not just the visuals, but the attention to detail as well. And the soundtrack is horrifying and beautiful at the same time. And not a lot of horror movies take place entirely during the day.
Okay.
Like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre takes place mainly during the day, but there is a key section of horror that takes place at night. But this movie takes place pretty much entirely during the day because of the fact that this part of Sweden is almost entirely bathed in sunlight.
Yeah.
And the only real section of the film that is in nighttime outside of the opening is a dream sequence. So yeah.
I suppose that would be weird, or at least different and significant to make something spooky when it's like 25 and 3 o'clock outside.
And this is a movie that earns its runtime as well, because this movie is 2 hours and 27 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is long for a horror movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like most horror movies are lucky to get over 2 hours, but this movie really earns its really long runtime, and I'm really looking forward to the director's cut, which is in like an extra 24 minutes.
I feel like Us was long.
Us was like an hour and 40 minutes, or an hour and 50 minutes or something.
Well, that's close.
Let's have a look. How long was Us?
It's almost 2 hours. Because maybe there's only so long that you can keep people amped up, you know.
Us was an hour and
around.
56 minutes.
Okay, so just under the 2 mark.
Get Out was an hour and 44 minutes.
Ooh.
It was a movie that like needed to be quite long, so it was 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, adapting a book.
And then the new one, well, it's adapting half of a book, really. And the new one coming out is 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Have you seen like how long the book is?
Oh, it's huge.
It's
super thick.
It's like 10 centimeters thick.
It's thicker than any of the Harry Potter books.
Yeah.
It's fucking thick.
Thick.
Thick with 2 C's.
It's about 3. It's 3 of the later Harry Potter books
Yeah.
stacked on top of each other.
And I'd be really interested to see if they actually do go through with the director's idea to make a film of, which is both It, so It Chapter 1 and 2, in one. And I hope it's not just a double feature, because that'd be boring.
Yeah.
If they do what the book does and
Goes back and forth.
and forth between the 2 time periods, that'd be really interesting.
I think it's possible, but like my understanding from having heard what Red Letter Media talk about is that because the book has so much stuff going on in it, that being able to cut it down in a way that makes it sort of legible would be difficult. Because even like the TV movie, both parts of it are like at almost 2 hours each, aren't they?
No, they're about an hour and a half.
Are they?
So the whole thing in one go is 3 hours.
Okay.
We watched the whole thing in one go, remember?
I remember doing it, but
Pretty,
yeah.
pretty much exactly 3 hours. We did it at like midnight.
But both parts
it
of it
very
were quite long. So being able to do one thing contained and having it not be at least 2.5 hours would probably... I think it would be a struggle.
Yeah, yeah.
Or at least you would lose a lot because it would be all plot.
Yeah, like the extended singular version of the film is not necessarily replacing just watching both of them. It's just an extra version of the film, possibly with more stuff in it as well.
Okay, so you're saying that there should be a standalone first one, a standalone second one, and then a cut where they take bits and pieces of both of them.
Yeah, well, like Kill Bill. There exists a version that is both films in one because that was the original intention. But unfortunately, that hasn't been released to the general public, which it should, considering Tarantino considers it one film.
Yeah.
But I think a better example would probably be Lars von Trier's Nymphomaniac, which was originally made as like a 5.5 hour movie and then cut down to two movies. So you get Nymphomaniac Volume 1 and Nymphomaniac Volume 2.
Yeah.
But then there also exists the director's cut, which is the full 5.5 hour movie. Yeah.
But no one would go to that.
No one would go to see that in cinemas, but someone might watch it at home.
Yeah.
But yeah. Now, before we end it, I just want to quickly... So, there's a 4th Matrix movie coming out. What are your thoughts?
Like I remember having seen the Matrix movies, and I remember enjoying them, but I wasn't sitting there with bated breath hoping they did a fourth one.
I wasn't. I love the Matrix trilogy. I love all three of them. Obviously, the first one's the best, but I do like all three of them. I've seen them many times. The first being like one of the most like innovative and influential action movies of all time. And I wasn't going like, oh, I hope they make a fourth one, because the third one ends.
Yeah.
It ends the story there. You don't need a fourth one.
Yeah.
But I will definitely be one of the first people in line to go see the new one, because I'm just really interested to see what the hell they're going to do with it.
Yeah.
Especially considering that apparently Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss are going to be in it, and they died in the third one. Spoiler alert. But like, you know, okay, so we were talking about Disney's live action movies. They've announced a live action
Please.
Lady and the Tramp movie. That's a thing that is going to exist in real life.
Well, I think that there's just a trend. That's just what they're just going to do that. They're just going to go back through the back catalogue and see like, well, what can we do a real life version of? Because the thing is, even if it's bad, even if it's the same film but with a different texture,
It's gonna make money.
people will see it. So they're not going to lose
Beauty
money.
and the Beast made $1 billion.
Yeah.
I like, this is all Tim Burton's fault for making a good movie called Alice in Wonderland. A movie that had actual passion and creative energy in it, right? And it
Because those
made
films are significantly different.
It made $1 billion, that
Yeah.
movie. And so of course Disney was going to follow the formula, and they made a few flops. They did Cinderella, and I don't think Maleficent was hugely successful. It was successful enough to warrant a sequel, which is coming out next year, but it wasn't, $1 billion successful.
Yeah.
And then
But they didn't lose money.
no, of course not. Disney rarely loses money when they make something like that. When they make something safe.
Yeah.
When they just do the same thing a second time. And then Beauty and the Beast came out. That made $1 billion, and so it ramped up the production of these live action remakes. Because usually they're only making like once every 2 years, maybe once a year. And now this year there have been 3 so far: Aladdin, Dumbo, which is also a Tim Burton film. Which
Is it any good?
I haven't seen it. It's the only one of the 3 that I would be interested in seeing. And The Lion King, one of the movies that is the most pointless live action remakes of all time. Because it's not live action, it's animated. Again, literally all it is just like a texture updating, like you said earlier. It's just doing the same movie a second time, but with photorealistic animals instead of just like, even if they really, really wanted to just make a Lion King again, they could have done a sequel, like a real theatrical sequel.
Yep.
They could have just done the movie again, but with CGI animals and make it look animated. Or they could have just not done it.
Yeah.
But this is Disney. They're not going to do that. They're not going to make... Especially considering the first one was the first movie to make like over $900 million. It was this close to reaching $1 billion. I think when you adjust for inflation, it hit $1 billion. But yeah. So like for its time, it was the most successful animated film ever. And then, of course, they kind of went downhill after that movie came out.
Yeah.
But
I saw the Jungle
yeah.
Book, which they did.
I heard the Jungle Book was quite good.
I enjoyed it. It was kind of its own thing because it wasn't the fun musical romp that the animated one was. It was grittier, and it was more about exploring the social relationships and the conflict between Mowgli and living amongst these animals, and like the fear campaign that Shere Khan has.
Yeah.
So there was a purpose for it to exist.
Yeah.
And like with Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, there is a reason to watch the animated one and a reason to watch the Tim Burton one.
Because the new one, it's a new adaptation of the book.
Yeah, they are different movies.
But Lion King, the Aladdin, like it's a fun movie, but literally it's just the same movie, and they've tacked on an extra 45 minutes of plot.
As far as I know, because they've got like, recognizable, fun blue guy
Will
who's
Smith.
meant to be Robin Williams in it, but it's not.
No, he's not. No, he's not meant to be like. At least they did that. At least they let Will Smith be his own thing and not try to replicate. Like visually, he looks the same to Robin Williams' character, but at least they let Will Smith do his own thing. They didn't just say be Robin Williams, even because you can't tell someone to be Robin Williams. And so I'm glad that they did that.
But he's just zany blue comic relief, isn't he?
Yes.
But basically, it's dumb, and I don't
Yeah, no,
want him
and
to
I
do
hate
anymore.
this. I hate this. And the Lady and the Tramp and the Lion King are movies that you can't like. Yeah, Lady and the Tramp has some human characters, but it's just such a stupid idea.
If you're gonna make animals talk and have human relationships, why
Yeah.
don't you give them an animated face that they can
Yeah.
do,
It's just
expressive faces
people
with?
love to worship the mouse, and nothing has
Yeah.
nothing has been more evident of that than what's happening with Spider-Man at the moment, and that's Disney backed out of their deal with Sony, right?
Right.
And so Sony, I'm like, okay, we'll take Spider-Man out of the MCU then. That's your punishment, Disney. And everyone's on Disney's side because it's Disney. Even though Sony are the ones, they're not the ones to blame. It's all Disney's fault. Anyway, I've got to go now, so I will fart in the mic and we'll be done with this.
Gross.
That's it for this episode of the Temporary Uncles podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Tempuncles, send us a funny email at tempuncles@gmail.com, and stay tuned for another exciting installment whenever the hell it happens. Ha ha, funny penis.